Hey everyone, a pleasant good day. Welcome into the True Philadelphian Sportscast and Sports Fanatic News. Whether you're listening on audio, that would be TPT True Philadelphian Sportscast or TPS, excuse me, and then Sports Fanatic News would be video on my YouTube channel. This is going to be our MLB World Series recap show. It was a heck of a World Series, a six-game feat that the Dodgers. Congratulations to them and Dave Roberts were able to win the World Series. I am Joe Boric, joined by my co-host Andrew Santangelo today. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing very well. Sad to see the baseball season come to an end. It's my favorite sport. I believe it's your favorite too, as well. I know it's up there with hockey and stuff, but it was a great playoffs, great overall World Series. Wish we could have got through Game 7, but yeah, like you said, congratulations to the Dodgers, Dave Roberts, Clayton Kershaw, all of them, etc. But especially those first-time winners. Um, but yeah, no, overall very excited. Was very pleased with the majority of the games.
Yeah, yeah, it was a very good series. It was a lot of obviously in the first couple games you had well honestly really until 5 and 6 you had more hitting oriented games in the winning caps of at least 6 runs for the winning teams, and then you had more pitching games in the final two and defensive games. So it was definitely interesting how it went because the Rays playoffs kind of went scoring in their first series to win, then went more how you expect the Rays to win, and then this series in the World Series with the wins they got were more scoring oriented, of course. So that it became interesting how that all played out. But I just really enjoyed this series. I think obviously we'll start with Game One, but Kershaw obviously pitched like a menace in Game One. I mean, 6 innings, 8 strikeouts. He only gave up 2 hits. You just saw he was in full control of that game, and probably realistically, if they weren't in full control of that game, could have went deeper, but they didn't need him to, so they pulled him when they did, and he just pitched phenomenal in that game. What did you think of Kershaw just coming in after the Dodgers scored early in well, not early, but in the fourth inning off of Bellinger to get momentum in that game? After Kershaw just stamped it early, getting them all the momentum, just having that this is the vintage Kershaw tonight. We're a little screwed.
Yeah, I thought Kershaw did a phenomenal job throughout the postseason. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of heat for the way he pitches in the postseason, but I thought he put that to rest. I mean, overall, I mean, 2-0, 2.26 ERA speaks for itself. And, I mean, arguably could have been up there for MVP if it wasn't for a Corey Seager insane World
Yeah,
Series. I mean, one of the best ever we've seen, at least in our lifetime. Can't speak for much before that, but I mean, I was comparing it to I don't remember what his ERA was, but I feel like what Kershaw did was similar to Hamels in our World Series. So like in terms of numbers, he probably could have been up there for World Series MVP and stuff. So I thought he put the quiet rest of all the hatred that he's been getting and finally did really well. And I thought good for him, and he finally got the ring he deserves because I think you'd agree he's one of a lot of fan favorites. Like outside his postseason struggles, there's no reason not to like him.
no, I completely agree with that. And like I said, he just came in and stomped on them. He completely set the tone for the Dodgers. And then you had the home run by Bellinger in the fourth that he got going, that he murdered to right after having the shoulder concern. So that obviously mitigated all that concern. So that really got the Dodgers going there. And they really didn't look back. They, of course, the Rays came within 1 run after Kiermaier homer, but then after that, they just kept pulling away, pulling away, pulling away until it became 8-1, and then the Rays added a couple late. So they were in full control of that game from pretty much inning one because of Clayton Kershaw just putting in one of the better pitch games of the World Series. That again, like I said, I think you would agree with this. If that was a closer game, don't you think he probably would have went and pitched maybe into the seventh inning? It's not like he was in a
Yeah,
bad.
absolutely. It took him out 8-1 just because they didn't want to
Yeah,
risk any injury and save him for the rest of the series and don't wear out his innings.
yeah, exactly. You don't want to risk anything when it comes to that. But I would say if we're going to pick a guy, obviously the player of that game is Clayton Kershaw. If you're going to pick an offensive guy of the game, I guess I would probably just give it to Bellinger because of the whole shoulder thing, like I said, and he hit that home run to get the offense going. So you had the concern, and then obviously when your team goes, oh wait, never mind, I guess his shoulder's okay. That's gonna make you free and easy as a club. So I think that would be my offensive guy. I don't know if you have a guy or you would just agree it might be Bellinger for that game. You're gonna go with an offensive player of the game.
I might swing it a different way. I think you could probably give it to Mookie Betts. He had a phenomenal game there. He got 2 hits, had an RBI, 2 runs, walk. He did it on the base path as well in that game. He was out there stealing um, as well. So I think overall he had 2 stolen bases there, second and third. So which helped Bellinger or not helped that Dodger offense get going. So I lean Betts a little more just for his overall production.
All right, cool. Well, two outfielders, one already filthy rich, the other that's about to be filthy rich in quite soon time. So, and then we'll move on to game two, which was a high scoring game of 10 total runs again, but this one ended up going towards the Rays' favor of a 6-4 victory. This was, of course, a more offensive, stouter game than you're used to seeing in a Rays game. You had Snell pitch. This was a weird game for Blake Snell because his stuff did not really look off when he was able to keep it in the zone. That was just the issue. He was all over the place in this game, leading to the 4 walks, leading him only be able to pitch 4 2/3 because he still had the 9 strikeouts and he still had the break and movement on stuff. It was just one of those weird outings that you're like, why can't he fully put it together in this outing? Because it's not like he's completely off, but he's clearly not on either. So like, why is that? Like, it was one of those. Wouldn't you agree? It was kind of a weird outing that it was. You were watching Snell going, "What the heck is going on?" Because you can't just get 9 strikeouts by accident against the Dodgers lineup.
No, it's weird for sure, but overall, I mean, I think that's kind of something you've seen from Snell since his Cy Young days, and I mean, I think he was perfect through the first 4 innings, and then ran into trouble that 5th inning, or perfect through 3 and had no hitter into the fourth, or something like that. Before he ran into trouble in the 5th inning. I think it's kind of what you've seen from him for a while now, but I thought he pitched pretty well, and again, we'll get into that one in a later game, but another early leash for him.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll get into that later. But yeah, I think all in all, it's not like he pitched bad in this game. No, like you said, he had a no hitter. The problem was the walk. He had the no hitter. He could have like normally when Snell's on and he has that good movement to have no hit stuff. That's when he's in the zone and like really on point, like he was later in the series. Where that's why this was such a weird in betweener game. That's why it was
Yeah.
it was kind of hard for me to like look at that and explain that game because it was just an odd game for him. And then the Dodgers, of course, had Gonsolin open, which I think is what killed them in this game personally, because then they had to kind of run the gauntlet in the bullpen in a game two. When after that game one victory, you could have put a big like cement block like on top of all the Rays by saying, nope, you're not getting out of this cage. We have you up 2-0. You're trapped now, and you're not coming back from this. Where for some reason you went with an opener, which I thought was an odd decision in game two, to try to come back and win a game there, especially when you pitched May later in the game, and you could have went with him too. Who didn't have a good outing in this game. He gave up 3 runs, but Gonsolin ended up giving up 1. He went to the bullpen. Floro pitched a good outing. Gonzalez had a 1 run, gave up 1 run, and then May struggled in that game to give up 3. I don't know about you. I just didn't agree with the decision of having an opening bullpen game after you put a stamp on it in game one. I think you should have tried to solidify your game by putting out an actual starter that at least could have gave you 3-4 innings there to at least not only go through 5 batters again.
I mean, Tony Gonsolin is a starter, if you think about it. I mean, he just didn't look good, so I think they just told him you have a short leash. Dustin May has struggled the
Well,
entire playoffs. I don't think you can trust him to be able to go out there and do what you had to do. Once you stole game one, you would rather Walker Buehler on full rest in Game 3. That way, he can set him up for a potential Game 7 as well. So honestly, I didn't have an issue with this because you didn't have much else room to go, in my opinion. I don't
Could
know.
start at Urias, maybe.
They had him for set up for Game 4 though. He eventually started. Um,
Yeah.
so
I think, though, Gonsolin, though, in the playoffs, though, he wasn't really stretched as a starter, though, because he hadn't pitched in 17 days coming into the postseason. That's why they used him in between two roles,
yeah,
which kind of screwed him up a little bit, too, and is why he seemed to be a little bit off, which the same went for Dustin May, who finally had a good game in Game 5, as we'll get to later, and had mixed in good games, so you see the kid's talented and has great stuff and has a future in the league. But I think it was just a weird decision. I think it kind of played into the Rays' hands, and
that's
that's
what
what helped them win that game 6-4. But
I just don't know where else you'd go. Is all I'm saying. Like you didn't have much else room to go. Because yeah, you can start
yeah,
Dustin May, but he struggled, so you'd have the same
you
leash on
maybe could
him.
have started. It would have been outside the box, but since he actually went 2 innings, uh, and he actually pitched the best out of anybody that pitched for the Dodgers in Game 2. You could have thought about starting Wood because Wood
And
is
they
a
might
smart.
have, but I mean, Gonsolin looked terrible, and I mean, their hope was probably to get him through 2 or 3 innings. But I mean, he came in and didn't really do that well. He gave up a hit, a run, a walk through 2 innings. So like, you had the short leash on him, and Flores in that
It
spot.
could be, but we saw in the later game, obviously, which we'll get to later, they still only kept him in for 5 outs. So it seems like that might have just been the strategy when Gonsolin was in. That it's like a tough thing to peg with what Dave Roberts' strategy was there. But this was the game. I think you're either going to pick a Lau or a Wendell if you pick probably an MVP of the game because Lau got it going. Brandon Lowe, excuse me. Nate Lau is the one that's pronounced Lau. It's Brandon Lowe for him. They have to make it all confusing on us. But anyway, Brandon Lowe had a home run in the first to get them going, and then he had a homer in the fifth to make it 5-0. So I would say for me, he would be my offensive MVP, was the other guy to get a shout out to just because he played good small ball that me and you always like. He got a double and then also had, I believe it was a sac fly later on, is Joey Wendell. So those would be, you're not going to really shout out a pitcher per se as much in this game. I mean,
Yeah, I agree,
yeah,
Brandon. But I will shout out Manuel Margot. He had a good playoffs as well. He went 2 for 3 in this game, so I like what he did. I don't think it's worthy of MVP or player of the game, but I think it was a good game and should be somewhat mentioned.
yeah, he's another good one. So we'll move on now into Game 3, which was another game that the winning team had 6 runs. This time it was a 6-2 victory for the Dodgers on October 23rd, which was led by the pitching of the young sensation Walker Buehler, who had 10 strikeouts, was absolutely filthy in this game, only gave up 3 hits, 1 run. I mean, it looked like you were watching Maddox out there or something in this game, like old highlights of like Maddox that you would see from before our lifetime. Like this guy just came in and put a stamp on the game, and so did really in this game. Other than Kenley, who gave up one, but was of course still able to close it, ended in the end. He didn't get a save, but close it out in the end. They just put a stamp on this game in general because Bueller pitched 6 innings pitched. Again, the 10 strikeouts, one great inning from Trinan with 2 strikeouts. Gratterall, who's been phenomenal, was phenomenal all playoffs as a young pitcher, one great inning, and then Jansen just gave up one. So, what do you think? I mean, what did you think of your performance and just the Dodgers pitching performance in Game 3 in general? It was very dominant.
I think Walker Buehler, he's been incredible. I mean, he struggled a little bit throughout different times of the regular season, but I mean, he showed up in this World Series and especially in that game, just nothing short of phenomenal, and it was really good to see. I mean, finished the game with 10 strikeouts was really cool, really good to see, and I think it goes to show what kind of battler he is, and credit to him for going out there and getting the job done. And I mean, Dodgers couldn't have asked for anything else. And I mean, they get jump out early in that game. scoring in the first inning, third, fourth, jump out. I mean, when you have an all-star pitcher like Walker Buehler out there, I mean, that's the recipe for success is let him get comfortable with those guys out there, and you're going to get good things. But no, yeah, I mean, Buehler was just incredible.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would say he's obviously of Game Three. He's the MVP of Game Three, hands down. And then offense, the guys you would shout out would be Turner got it going early, get well soon, in a first inning homer, and then Muncy singled to score Corey Seager and Justin Turner. So I would say since those two got it going in the early top 3 innings, to really supplant the Dodgers' lead, and that's really all they needed with how Walker Buehler was pitching in the bullpen. We know the Dodgers have, even with the struggles of Jansen. Um, so that's really all they needed in that game from how you saw Buehler going. Do you have anyone else that you would like to shout out offensively in that game other than a Muncy or a Justin Turner?
No, I mean, I really like the way I know you just mentioned it, but Justin Turner, I mean, he had a phenomenal playoffs. I know obviously Corey Seager gets looked at for winning that World Series MVP, but I really like. I mean, obviously the controversial stuff at the end of the game, but what Turner did in the actual game part, I mean, it was incredible. I thought he had a really good series too.
Yeah. And then obviously, even though they lost, Randy Arozarena had to hit another home run in this game. I mean, that just has to happen. That's not allowed to not happen. So he hit another home run in that game because it's illegal if he doesn't. So, um, and then moving on, we have now Game 4, which was the highest scoring affair of a 15 run total. I can do math. Which was an 8-7 victory for the Rays over the Los Angeles Dodgers, which, I mean, obviously in this game, we're not hung ho on pitching either. I mean, Yarborough battled and pitched a decent 3 1/3. He gave up two, he walked one, he gave up 5 hits. It's not like he came out and pitched poorly. The guy that actually gave up the couple for the Rays, other than Yarborough, was Aaron Loop later on in that ball game. Where for the Dodgers, when it comes to pitching, Urias actually pitched a pretty decent 4 2/3 because he had 9 strikeouts, looked pretty good. He just gave up 2 home runs that he left the ball over on those for the 2 home runs. Other than that, I think the kid looked really solid out there. And then that's the one game that Trinan really struggled in, which kind of killed the Dodgers' momentum. And then Pedro Baez came in, who hasn't always been good really most of the time in playoffs in his career, and didn't look good again. So that it just was unfortunate kind of for the Dodgers, wouldn't you think? Kind of in that game, it just didn't work out for them, the moves they made.
Yeah, I thought it was another short leash, like you mentioned. Julio pitched pretty well, just gave this unfortunate the two long balls, but I mean, I thought,
He was at 80 pitches, by the way.
yeah, that's not that much. I mean, that's not that absurd. So I thought you could have left him in there, finish out that fifth inning, but instead he gets pulled. Um, and you mentioned it, yeah, there are a couple of guys come in, and I mean Blake's been pretty good throughout the playoffs, but he's struggling this game. So yeah, an unfortunate couple moves there. Moves you're used to seeing Roberts make, and then obviously we'll get to the debacle in the ninth because that's a point to touch on. But then your closer comes in and blows it. So yeah, couple tough moves, couple tough bounces away from being up 3-1.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird that they also, after trying and struggled, they went to Baez, who, like I said, has been a guy that pitched much better for you this year. Throughout his career, has been kind of a roller coaster type reliever, but has struggled in big moments. And they even brought this up on MLB Network. I think it was kind of odd after you had someone struggle to go to a guy that hasn't usually been great in the postseason.
Yeah.
So that's one decision that I questioned in that game. But other than that, I think it was just unfortunate events. Kolarek pitched .2 good innings, and then Gratterall pitched .1 to one hitter, got him out. And then again, yeah, the big story of this game, obviously, before we go to that, we'll just talk about the couple people that um, pitched for the Rays other than Yarborough, since all I did was mention him and Luke. Thompson pitched good in .2 innings. Ryan Thompson, the guy that comes from the side, he seems like a pretty solid reliever. Fairbanks, who seems like a solid reliever, pitched okay. He this wasn't his best outing. He gave up 1 run, 2 hits. And then Castillo also gave him 1 run, 1 hit, and 2 walks. This definitely was not his best outing. Loop had a bad outing, giving up 2 runs. And then in 1 1/3, Nick Anderson continued to struggle, giving up a run and 3 hits. And then Curtis pitched well, getting the win to round out the game. 1 1/3 innings, only giving up 2 hits, and then rounding out the game for the Rays, pitching well and kind of settling everything down in the latter part of that game, where the offense, oddly enough, in this game got started by Justin Turner again, as he hit a home run in the first inning, and then Corey Seager hit a home run in the third inning, and then again, it's illegal if a Rosarina doesn't. He hit a home run in the bottom of the fourth inning to make it 2-1, and then Muncy made it 3-1 in the fifth, and Renfroe made it 3-2 in the sixth, or fifth, excuse me, bottom of the fifth. So this was a very offensive, as we said, touted game. And then one of the funnest players, that's not a word, but we're making it one, funnest players to watch in baseball is Kike Hernandez, who's just an energy, thriving type player. Doubled, and that put the Dodgers up 4-2, which when a Dodgers team is up 4-2 in the sixth, typically they're feeling pretty solid about themselves. But then, of course, people got on base and Lau homered, and that made it 5-4 in the bottom half of that inning until Peterson came back and singled in the seventh to make it 6-5. And then Kiermaier came back in the seventh to make it 6-6. So you see the pattern we have here. A lot of bounce back offense in this game. This was probably the most fun game to watch if you were able to watch this game. To then Seager singled and made it 7-6, which was in the eighth, of which you thought Jansen would be able to come in and get the save until we had that Brett Phillips play, which then, if you want to explain it, I'll let you walk through that since I've been talking for a while. What did you think of that whole Brett Phillips play and the blown save in general by Kenley Jansen in that ninth inning there?
Is yeah, Jansen come in, get a quick strikeout, and then it all went downhill from there. Walks the next batter, gives up a single to the next batter. Believe he gets the next guy out or something, and then they walk Randy Rosarina. I think they kind of pitched around him, which I have no issue with. So he made it first and second. Now you're facing a guy who hasn't had a hit in over a month in Brett Phillips, so you got confidence to get him out. And he made you pay for it. He rips a single to center field. Chris Taylor comes charging in, kind of kicks it around. 1 run was obviously going to score, so you're going to have a tie game regardless. But then Randy wants to test Chris Taylor's arm. And you got to remember, Cody Bellinger's out with back spasms before the game. So he goes to the DH role, so you don't have your normal center fielder in there. And Taylor kicks it away. He gets it, fires home. And Randy trips at third, kind of does a somersault, which is pretty funny since a lot of our viewers might be Philadelphia fans. Just like a Daniel Jones tripping on his 80-yard run is what it's similar to. But this case, it works out for Rosarina because Will Smith misses the relay throw from Muncy at the plate, gets away from him, which allows Randy to get the winning run in the score and even the series up. So just a crazy play. Many different bounces could have happened. Kenley Jansen could have backed up the catcher, could have had a different play at the plate maybe. But yeah, it was a fun play. And Jansen was at fault again, but give credit where credit's due. Rays battled, and I mean, I feel like that's been the story of the Rays. You had some unsung hero kind of make big headlines at some point and get a big hit, and the one game was a guy that went undrafted, and then it was Mike Baruso or what I think his name is.
Mike Baruso, yeah.
And in this game, you had Brett Phillips, who hadn't had a hit over a month, and that's the fun of baseball because you're not going to really have that anywhere. I mean, obviously you get some big names, sleepers that find ways to make names, but like, I feel like baseball more than others, you kind of get those unsung heroes a lot.
Yeah, you do. That was a very interesting. I was watching that play at a Halloween party last weekend, actually, in my one friend's room on his mini TV, and that was just nuts. Like, you were like, "Oh no, it's going to only be tied," and then it's like, "Oh wait, no, the catcher missed the ball," and then he ended up getting to score. I also think a more experienced. I'm not calling out Will Smith. Maybe on the podcast I did for OT Heroics. Check out all the great stuff over there, by the way, people, if you haven't. But I sounded like I was calling out Will Smith. I'm just more saying I think you should have been able to notice you didn't have to go for a swipe tag there. where I think a more experienced catcher may have picked up on the relay from his peripheral, since you kind of learn those things. That, oh, the guy's not even close to home plate, I don't have to swipe this. Because it's not like you would see he fell down, but usually in your peripheral vision, you can see if someone's coming into the plate or not. So if he, that's why I feel like he probably could have noticed. Like, for example, Austin Barnes, who's a defensive first catcher, may have picked up, just because he's a defensive first instinctual first catcher, on that, because of his experience, more than a guy like Smith who's just in the league.
I'm gonna go a different direction. Because as a catcher, I think, not saying as me being a catcher, that's my least favorite position. I'm just saying, as for Will Smith, when he's kind of turned like that, I don't know if I put that more on Muncy almost. Like, he's the guy kind of facing both ways. I think if he realizes as the relay, he needs to realize, oh, he fell. He can either run towards home a little bit, make an easy throw, or kind of start chasing him down and forcing him back to third as he's getting up, or even point out to him that he's down. And that goes to my point about Kenley Jensen. You got to be aware and back that play up. Like, that's the whole point. I mean, I'm sure you learned this in the league as much as I did too. Is not only backing up plays, but communication as well. I mean, because as a catcher, you're just used to that swipe tag, so he's fully, to me, viewing Muncy there. And then when that throw comes in, bounce off the glove. One, Jansen should have been there to back it up. Two, even if not, he should be screaming, "He's down! He's down!" Take it, like, you gotta communicate that there, which he could even do when he wasn't backing it up. I see your point. You're not wrong, but I think we can make that case as well for those other guys as well, because I think it goes to fault for everybody. Because I mean, that's the point as a team and communication and stuff. I mean, you all gotta be able to pick each other up, and so I like that side of it too. I never thought of it that way, but I thought of those other ones as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that. The first baseman could alert, like, point down the third base line and say, like, he fell, just catch the ball, and then, like, go make the like, something. Like, you're all right, communication is key. And that was like we say, anything can happen in baseball, and that's definitely what happened to get the Rays that Game 4 win, which, of course, unfortunately for them, which is, of course, going to go down as a winning season for the Rays. They had a lot of injuries themselves and overcome them. Brett Phillips was actually one of them, which was part of the reason he didn't get a hit in a month. So they had a bunch of different things that come over. That was the last win they would get in the series, as the Dodgers in Game 5 were able to win 4-2. Which was a good pitched game. Not as amazing as Game 1, but another good pitched game. 5 2/3, 2 hits, 5 hits, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, and 2 walks for Clayton Kershaw in that game. And then Dustin May, that's the game that he pitched really good, and he came in for 1 2/3, struck out 2 batters, really cemented himself in this game, and so did the young kid Gonzalez, who came in and got a couple outs, and then Trinan, who, of course, closed it out in that game, which I think was a decision after Jansen struggled in the game prior. They went with a different guy, and it ended up working out, but we can get back to that later. What did you think of Kershaw in this game?
Again, I thought he was dominant. I know he had 2 walks, which kind of hurt him, but to me, it was a mistake by Roberts to pull him. I know it ended up working out with May there as May came in, but I mean, that was a risky decision there with how bad May struggled and with how good Kershaw was in those first 2 games. I definitely would have let Kershaw finish that 6th inning, and then probably pulled him after that. But shout out to May for getting the job done as well. But I thought Kershaw looked pretty good.
Yeah, no, he was really good in that game. It was just first game he was, like, on point, ridiculous. Where that game he was just really good, Clayton Kershaw.
Even that, I thought was pretty much on point. I mean, he had one bad inning in the third, but outside of that, he didn't give up a run in any of the other innings.
Yeah.
That's why I was surprised Kershaw got that short leash.
I didn't think he would get that short of a leash either. It's just in Game 1 he had maybe one bad batter. That's like he was just, like, ridiculous. Where Game 5 he was still amazing. Where Glasnow really struggled early on, giving up a single to Seager, the eventual World Series MVP, after winning the Championship Series MVP. to score him in the first, and then he gave up a single to Bellinger to score another run in the first, and a homer to Peterson in the second to make it 3-0. But after that, he settled down all the way until the fifth inning when he gave up a homer to Muncy and was able to actually give them 5 innings of work for 4 runs and 7 strikeouts and making a couple mistake pitches for the 2 home runs and 3 base balls. But he didn't pitch a very good game by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he pitched a game that shows how good of a pitcher he is, though, because some of those guys that are just throwers, they're not considered guys that can battle through a game. Where, like for Vince Velasquez, for example, where where Tyler Glasnow showed if he struggles early on, he can still kind of fine tune it and get his team through 5 innings, which put them in a pretty decent spot at that point in the game. They were down 4-2 at the time. That gives your team a chance, only down by 2 runs. So I think he showed he's a guy that can battle in big moments too when he doesn't have his best stuff.
Glasnow's an exciting pitcher for a lot of people because of his strikeouts. I think he's a little overhyped because of those strikeouts. I don't think he's as good as people make him out to be. I think he's the third best. I just think he's the third best pitcher in that rotation. I thought in his playoffs he didn't look too hot outside of the strikeouts, honestly. I mean, if you look at his ERA, it was kind of high. I think it was in the fours for most of the postseason, if not all of it. So I think time and time again there, you're right, he does battle and stuff, but I mean, you just compared him to Vince Velasquez, so I mean,
But I wasn't comparing him to Vince Velasquez. I was just saying like another guy early on in his McCullers from the Astros isn't accustomed to getting deep into games because he was more of a guy that just kind of threw his slider with great velocity and stuff. Like, those guys are not considered to battle when they struggle early on. Even guys like Strasburg, when he first came up, if he struggled in the first couple innings, normally would not get through him.
Yeah, I think Glasnow needs to add another pitch this offseason because I think he can be really good. I just think he has some things to work on, and I think he's mainly a two-pitch pitcher, which hurts him a lot. He can get by the Baltimore and the Kansas Cities of the AL, but once you start getting up into those powerhouses of Houston, the Yankees, and the Dodgers, as we saw, I think that's where he tends to struggle. I think he can be a phenomenal pitcher. I think we're a little ahead of the game right now, but I think if he adds another pitch this offseason or makes his curveball better, he can be that much better of a pitcher and really turn into what we're seeing or what we believe his potential is. I just don't think he's there yet. And that's why I say I think Blake Snell and Charlie Morton are better than him.
I would agree with that. They're both better than him. I think he will reach his potential, though, and I agree that an extra pitch would be a good way to do so. We also skipped, I would say, because we skipped over it, this one it would be Kershaw, I would say, for Game 5 as the MVP, and then Seager and Bellinger as the offensive mentions because they got him going right off of the jump against Glasnow. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I think Muncy again had 2 hits in RB. I think he had another good game here. This was Turner's lone bad one. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I love what Kershaw did. But Dustin May coming in that jam and getting out of that was huge as well. But I agree, Kershaw would be the pitcher. But what he did to get out of that inning was big.
That was huge, and that's a great vote of confidence from Dave Roberts after May struggled a bit to put him in that situation, knowing the kid can step up and show out in that situation. But in Game 4, we did forget to give an MVP. I'm assuming we'll just hand it to Brett Phillips, considering he got that big hit after being out for a month. Yeah, so we did forget that, so we'll give that to Brett Phillips. But now we will wrap this out with the deciding game, Game 6, which became a 3-1 victory again, led by some good pitching by the Dodgers. This one, their bullpen, this time it worked out flawlessly. It didn't work out in Game 2, but 4 games later, the same method that I questioned again because usually they say if it doesn't work, like the most, I forget the actual saying, but it's like the most mad thing is trying to like repeat something and think it will be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Like something along those lines where, of course, that ended up being the case. But in this game, Gosselin looked different. In the first game, he looked off. In this game, he was battling some with 2 walks, but the batters he was zoned in on, he actually looked good to get, because for 4 of his 5 outs he got strikeout. He looked better in this game than he looked in game two. In my opinion, he didn't look great still because he still had 2 walks in 1 1/3 and 1 2/3 inning, but he had the 4 strikeouts and only made that one mistake pitch with the home run. Wouldn't you say he looked better in this game than game two?
It looked better. I don't think he looked great. I would have pulled him if I was Roberts too. I don't think he looked that good. Um, I mean, that's your plan going into the game. He's given up 5 base runners and two, not even 2 full innings. At that point, he had already given up a run as well, and he was about to give up more. If they didn't put Floro in, he's had a good postseason. So I don't think he looked overly good. Can you say he looked better than game two? I think you could say that, but I don't think that's saying much. In that sense, so I was disappointed in his outing if I would be Dave Roberts.
Gotcha. And you're right. Floro pitched. He got out of that inning for them in the second inning. And then Wood was their middle of the game pitching MVP, not their overall, because we'll get to who we'll give that to later, because he was able to give them 2 innings in the middle of the game there of giving up absolutely nothing and getting 3 strikeouts. And then Baez was actually able to give them a good 2/3 of an inning in this game, followed by Gonzalez with a great 1 1/3 inning, who really got going at the end of this playoffs, which became a huge lefty for them. And then Gratterall, who was just a beast all playoffs for 2/3 of an inning. So overall, a great pitching game by the Dodgers after Gonsolin gave up that early home run to Rosarina, who easily would have been the MVP if the Rays ended up winning the World Series of the World Series. He gave up that home run early. The rest of the Dodgers pitching staff was, of course, able to bounce back and get going, and they just didn't look back from there. And then that Mookie Betts home run later in the game was almost like it was almost like they killed somebody on the field. Like it was like one of those just killer moments where like it felt like they were up by 7 when they were up by 1. Like it just felt like the game was over after that happened in the bottom of the 8th. And one of those reasons is because of momentum. And the reason I wanted to bring up all that happened first is the momentum shift might have been because, and I want to say, I really like Kevin Cash. I think he's still going to be a good manager. I just think he fell into the trap of what Roberts has fallen into in the past that he didn't fall into this year, which is sometimes you don't use your wits as much as you just keep using the spreadsheet in front of you, where that seemed like to be the problem for the Dodgers not being able to win the World Series in some of these past 4 years, where this year that became the problem for Cash, is they always tend to not let guys go deep 3 times through the order for the Rays. Snell was at 73 pitches, only 25 balls, and had 9 strikeouts, and they removed him. Andrew, I'll just turn it over to you. I mean, what was your reaction when that happened?
I was furious. I wanted a game 7. You knew the moment they pulled Snell, the game was going to go to the Dodgers. I really didn't understand how you could make that move. I mean, Blake Snell looked phenomenal. Like, you could not, outside a perfect game, you could not have asked for a better game from Blake Snell. I mean, that hit the center wasn't even that hard of a hit, but it was the best hit of the day. I just, I hate to rip on a guy and blame him, but that was a pretty bad decision. You mentioned it when Betts hit that home run. You felt the energy leave and switch teams when they pulled Snell. I mean, Mookie Betts went and celebrated with the Dodgers when they pulled Snell because they're like, we needed somebody else to come in this game. I mean, the Mookie Betts, Corey Seager, and Justin Turner combined 1 for 16 in the series against Blake Snell, and in that game, 0 for 6 for 6 strikeouts. I don't care what analytics say, and I like analytics too, but I don't care what they say. 0 for 6 with 6 strikeouts and all that. You leave him in the game at that point. And, I mean, Kevin Cash cost fans a Game 7, cost his team in Game 7, and Dodgers should give him a ring saying thank you.
Yeah, that wasn't a good decision, and this is, like I said, well, it was unfortunate for Roberts. This is some of the stuff we were talking about him in past years, that one decision that killed the Dodgers. So hopefully for Kevin Cash, for his sake, and the Rays' sake, they're hoping in a couple years down the line, we're talking about the same learn and growth for Kevin Cash as it happened for Dave Roberts, as he was able to claim the World Series. But I completely agree. You can't remove him there. And then I said this on some of the other podcasts I was on, but I'll say it again because it's just a point that needs to be honed home. What in the heck are you putting in your most struggling pitcher
Yeah, that's the other
after?
thing.
Yeah, like that. Like why are you putting in like the guy that's been the worst for you afterwards? That also makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like I honestly think if you want to put in guys, also Anderson's a sinker baller, a guy that tries to get ground outs and stuff like that with sinking fastballs and stuff, but he still throws hard, so he's not that much of a throw off from Snell. You should have put in like that Thompson kid. That would be a throw. You still shouldn't have removed Snell, but I'm just saying things that would have been
Yeah.
smart. If you put in Thompson, that's a throw off, a sidearm guy that has good movement on his stuff as a righty compared to a gunning lefty, or a guy like Yarborough who pitched later in the game right after Snell, who's a completely different lefty. That's a throw off compared to Blake Snell coming from a completely different angle as a lefty. So and throwing completely different styles. So it just didn't make sense to who you went to after that, and that is the deciding factor of the World Series. I think that's the X factor. It was removing Blake Snell. I completely agree with that. And then in this game, I mean, you realistically kind of had the Rays give it a little bit because they had the wild pitch by Nick Anderson, and then of course um, you just had the fielder's choice by Corey Seager as well. So they kind of handed them some of those runs there, and then Mookie Betts supplanted it with that run that made them seem like they were up by 1,000. That's why I brought that up in the end because that seemed to completely drain the little, or brought that up before because that seemed to completely drain the little momentum the Rays had left. But you hit it on the head. That World Series was lost when Blake Snell was removed. That's
Yeah.
why that's going to be a decision I think Kevin Cash is going to learn and grow from mightily and right away because there's nothing more of a slap in the face than blowing a big decision in the World Series.
Yeah. I can't imagine being in his shoes. I do feel bad for him. Um, yeah, that was a tough move, and it's going to be ripped on for ages now. And hopefully, he can eventually, obviously, always Phillies first, but obviously, the Phillies can't win every single year. But hopefully, he's able to get one by the time he's done managing, and he can kind of forget about that moment. But that would really be a shame if, say, he can't get one and he's got to live with that for the rest of his life. That would be tough.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But this has been a great 6 game World Series. Me and Andrew were both hoping for Game 7, but we weren't able to get it. And oddly enough, all 3 championships ended in Game 6. The Stanley Cup Finals ended in Game 6, went to the Tampa Bay Lightning. The NBA Finals, of course, ended in Game 6, which went to the Los Angeles Lakers, so double LA championships. That then went to the Dodgers, who ended the NBA, MLB World Series in Game 6 down there in Arlington in the new stadium that looks very, very nice from the inside and has grown on me from the outside. So um, it was just a great overall series. My final thought would be congratulations big time to Clayton Kershaw for pitching a hell of a playoffs and just having his best overall. Like you said, he could easily have been the MVP if it wasn't for Corey Seager hitting like Mickey Mantle. So that Corey Seager clearly deserved the MVP because he literally hit like a throwback guy from the 50s in this postseason. So and then a Rosarina, you have to give a shout
Yeah.
out to that dude. The Rays would not have been where they were. And Morgo, you're right, was huge all playoffs, getting big hits. So those would be my guys for each team to give shout outs to. But congratulations to Kershaw, Roberts, Jock Peterson, another guy that's been in the Dodgers through all their runs. Turner, who's been there through all the runs, and then you have Barnes actually has been there through most, if not all, the runs. Their backup catcher, so all the guys that have been there through all of them and all the ups and downs of trying to win and finally getting one. Just congratulations to them. So Andrew, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, echo what you just said. Congratulations to all those guys, and shout out to the other guys that stepped up. Kershaw ending his playoff hate and all how bad he is. Credit to Justin Turner. I think he's undervalued, but he made a name for himself in this one. Um, I'm excited to see what this offseason brings and everything, and who we'll see move. A couple big names from these teams will be free agents. Turner, I believe, is a free agent. Charlie Morton's a free agent. Off the top of my head, those two guys. So credit to them and credit to the Dodgers. You don't know how much was left of this team. A lot of those guys got 1 year left or two. So you could see a different Dodgers team in the near future. So they were kind of running out there, and I think they knew that as well. So a lot of credit to them. And, yeah, congratulations to that Dodger team, especially Kershaw and Dave Roberts. They kind of can get that monkey off their back for some of the hate they've really been getting the last couple off seasons after they ended. So big shout out to them and congratulations. And, hey, free agency's here now. We'll come out with those. So make sure you guys pay attention to us and those free agency talks that we'll get into, and hopefully we're able to get jobs done, and hopefully we can see our team back there soon.
Yeah, please pay attention to the Hot Stove Talks where I have at True Philadelphia and Sportscast, which is our podcast name, and then Sports Fanatic News is the YouTube channel name for the video versions, whatever version you prefer. But please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. For Andrew, who you can find at AJ_Santangelo on the lovely app of Twitter. And I am Joe Boric, who you can find at JJBoric26 on Twitter. This has been the True Philadelphian Sportscast and Sports Fanatic News World Series recap show. Congratulations to the Dodgers for their 6-game World Series victory. Until next time, have a great and safe, pleasant week, everybody. Peace out.